Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to our in-depth Betweenlands tutorial/showcase. Today we are going to be talking about a couple really awesome blocks. First up we have the repeller, and we're also going to be covering the censer today as well. Now the repeller, the way this works, and if you guys have seen like my Sevtech series, you know I use this for the hunting dimension just to make life a bit easier, but we're going to pop down here for this, and if you set up the repeller, it makes a great decorative item. It really does. I've used it for decor a bit, but in addition, you can use it for a really cool effect, and that is to repel mobs. So the way that this works, first up you place a shimmer stone inside of it, and it's going to give it this kind of little particle effect, which shows that it can then be activated. You never have to replace the shimmer stone or anything. And you can shift right click to take that out if you want to deactivate the repeller. Also, just breaking the repeller will drop the shimmer stone as well. So, and the shimmer stone, it doesn't emit light or anything like that. It just, it just makes that particle effect. But then what we can do is we can take vials of Bioris. Now that we've covered alchemy, you should know how to get this. We can take this Bioris, and it says right there it can be used as fuel for the repeller. And what we can do is we can just place this in, and it can hold up to 10 Bioris. And it's going to emit some runes, and it's going to emit this shield around it. And what this shield does is it keeps hostiles from coming in and out of it, as well as a lot of neutral mobs that are not going to be able to come in and out of it. And if a mob is in it when you activate it, it's going to push that mob out, so you can see the hag gets thrown out. However, this does not include boss mobs and wights. Wights can safely pass in and out of the shielding area, and any kind of bosses are going to be able to do the same as well. And for example, any projectiles that try to go through this area will get repelled off of the shield as well. So it gives you kind of a protective area that you can work with and use for whatever you may want to use it for. So it is quite useful. And in addition, if you right click it, you'll notice that it changes in size. Like it starts out, this is a 4-block radius. If I right click it, it's going to move out to an 8-block radius. And then there is a 13 setting and a 17.5 setting. So it's going to protect at maximum all the way out to here. And you'll notice it pushed the skeletons out. This one didn't get pushed out, I guess, because he's like stuck at the moment. There we go. But it's going to protect a fairly large area. Now bear in mind that it is going to passively consume fuel, and the speed is based on a combination of, first up, the size. Larger sizes of repellent are going to drain fuel a bit faster, and then also any time that mobs attack it, like projectiles and things get shot off of it, or mobs try to pass through it, it's going to consume a little bit more fuel. So the more under attack it is going to consume a bit more, but it does last for a very decent amount of time. You could say that we haven't really used much out of this. And if you have some kind of a mod, in a mod pack or something like that, that allows automation of right clicking, you can automate this as well. So just a heads up on that. It would work with something like that. And in addition, the radius on these can overlap. So if we put one over here and we apply some Bioris, you can see that it's kind of made a shield in this area, which is overlapping in with this area. And for example, now if I was to spawn in a mob, say right in this area, shoom, he gets sent out. It's going to make that extra bubble of protection. You can actually make some really cool looking areas with this too, though they will require fuel to be visually active. Now you will notice like mire snails, geckos, they can hang out in this no problem, but for example lurkers, because they are a neutral mob and they will attack you when attacked, it will send them out of there. So most neutral mobs that will fight back are going to get pushed out of that area. Also you'll notice the Harlequin toad can't jump in here, but he is climbing. He is trying to climb on top of it. And for example, if a mob tries to come in through the top, shoom, he is going to take fall damage and get thrown off of it. So kind of a neat little effect there. I do wish there was a way to get these, maybe not have the effect, but have them as like a constant like visual thing, because I think they just look visually so beautiful. But in order to get the kind of the effect, you're going to have to feed them with fuel, at least at the moment. So, and very, very slow on drain, and I've used them a bit, like I said, in the past for protecting out areas in dangerous locations. And I should also mention that you can take and you can drain this out. So you can see I pulled 5 Biorus from that. You can just take your vials and pull out and replace the Biorus. And then I want to talk about the Censer. This actually has a ton of really cool uses. It's a newer item that was added, and this is where you're going to use your cremains as well as these ancient remnants that we've talked a little bit about before. And if you place this down and you open it up, you're going to see this right here. Also, let me grab some sulfur. And depending on what you put in the left slot is going to change the effect. Now, sulfur goes in this slot. We'll throw a stack of that in there. And if you put in, for example, a ball of sap, you're going to see that this begins running and it begins eating up the sulfur. And what happens is you can see kind of a little aura coming off of it. And I'll actually grab a bit more of this. If I throw this into there, you're going to see that if I get near this, it's going to slowly restore my decay bar. Now, one thing to note is it's going to, it works on any person or any mobs or anything like that that may have decay. And it's going to eat through the sap at a decent rate. Maybe not the best way to restore decay, but it can be useful. It does slowly consume. It restores 1/2 of decay, I believe, per use, and each ball of sap has 2 uses. So basically think of it as a ball of sap can be used to restore a single bit of decay. It's not really, for this, it's not really any better than just eating a ball of sap, but it can be used for like a nice little AoE effect. And if you have stuff automated, then you can have a place in your base maybe where you don't have to worry about your decay bar, and you can just be near this and it will restore it, right? Now, the nice thing is it's not going to eat any of this ball of sap if it's not actively restoring decay. So I can get near it, I can hang out with it, I can let it run. It's not going to eat any more sap until I actually need it. So one thing to note, and it does restore the same amount of sap, so there's not really any negative effect. But when you're out exploring or something like that, it might just be easier to carry the sap with you. But good for kind of an AFK spot or something like that, to have that there. Now, another way to restore is weeping blue petals. These can be used to restore decay, and it has 6 uses as opposed to the ball of sap only having the 2 uses. And both of these, they go out further. You don't have to be standing directly next to them for the record. The little visuals are just around it, but it does cover a fairly large area. So just bear that in mind. So I can go out a ways from this, and you can see I'm still getting the restorative effects from that. Weeping blue petals I like a bit more for doing like an AFK area, but it really just comes down to what you have access to as well. Now, next up, while we're talking about decay, if you take some stagnant water and you put this into there and you put some sulfur in there, you're going to see that it's going to slowly drain out the stagnant water, and you can see remaining duration, it's 25 minutes per bucket of stagnant water, and it's going to cause decay to be accelerated. So you can kind of see this area, and that's the area that it covers, and it basically applies decay to this entire area. So for example, if I get near this, you're going to see that I have the elixir of decay effect, and my decay is going to steadily go down. Could especially be used for some interesting, I think, PvP effects, where you start off the battle maybe with like full, full decay, and then as the battle progresses, you get slower and weaker and stuff as long as you're in the terrain. It could be kind of cool, especially for maybe some kind of a PvP arena. It might have some pretty cool effects, I think. Now, next up, let's talk about You know, the decay that we covered when we were talking about farming. This stuff right here, it's really, really nasty, and you can use plant tonic, of course, to restore this, or you can put plant tonic into a censer, and you can see that it has repaired all of that, and we now have a censer effect in the area that's going to prevent crops from decaying. And then once again, it's only going to consume this when a block would decay, so it's something that's going to last for a while. But bear in mind that you are going to be burning sulfur at a slow rate, so having some way to get lots of sulfur, having access to lots of sulfur, or just if you have a lot of decay, drop that down, do your plant tonic, because where a plant tonic can only cover a 5x5 area, using this is going to cover a larger area. A quick look on the wiki, it's a 16x5x16 area that this covers and deals with decay. So you can make a larger farm, put a censer in the middle, and when your stuff starts decaying, go ahead, drop some plant tonic in there and use the sulfur. Of course, if you're not using the purified swamp dirt. Now next up, there are elixirs. And if you were to put an elixir in here, along with some sulfur, you can see that we're going to have 102 minutes and 30 seconds of a continuous effect of the elixir. So in this case, it's tough skin. So you can see I have the effects of a tough skin elixir when I'm near this. And if I go a little ways away from this, since the potency is only 1, we're probably going to see it actually start dropping about out to here. Maybe a little bit farther. Okay, out here, I have finally stopped getting the effects of the tough skin elixir. So you can see it covers a massive range with the censer. Now, if we were to, let's just pull this out, and let's break this one down, and let's do instead a potency 5, duration 1. And you can see that now the duration that it lasts is down to about 16 minutes. However, the range on this is substantially larger. So I could come out, let's go way out here. I'm still getting the effects. I'm probably still going to be getting, yeah, I'm still getting the effects. So you could see, depending on if you do potency or duration, I'm still getting the effects. It's going to change. Potency is going to increase the range that it affects, whereas duration is going to increase the amount of time that it lasts. So somewhere about in here, I'm going to start getting the effects of it. Right here. So basically, this is the distance with a potency 5 version of the elixir. And then you saw the duration when you have the duration up. It's quite powerful. It's not going to give you the potency version, so you're just going to have like standard tough skin or standard regen. It's going to give you the weak versions of it. However, it is going to last for a long time and give you a big AoE effect when you're near it. So can be quite useful, and there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with the elixir. For example, elixir of ripening, you could use that instead of weeping blue petals or sap balls to deal with your decay in a large area. And as long as you have the kind of the infrastructure to easily make those potions, it's going to make dealing with decay around your base easier than if you were to go with balls of sap or weeping blue petals. So next up, let's cover bottled fog. Bottled fog, the way this works, if you place this in, you can see that we have 1,000 millibuckets of fog, and we have 15 minutes of duration for this. And basically what happens is it makes an area around it increase plant growth. And what's really nice about it, like if I was to harvest out all this, yeah, you can see this one's already, they're growing extremely fast. It's basically applying bone meal effects all around it. So if we watch this for just a second, you're going to see, probably be a little bit easier if I clean some of this stuff up. There we go. You're going to see that these crops are pretty much going to have like an occasional bone meal effect that hits them, and you can see visually the area around it because it does make kind of a steam effect. Now in addition, it's going to allow you to grow certain plants that you normally wouldn't be able to. So for example, if we grab ourselves like some tall sludge creep, there are certain plants within Betweenlands that can be grown through the normal, the plant growth, like what we talked about when we were doing the farming episode. However, they have to have a censer or be grown within a sludge dungeon. And these are plants that are specific to the sludgeon itself. So for example, this tall sludge creep, you can see this plant can only be grown in sludgeon mist. That means it either has to be grown in the sludgeon dungeon or it has to be grown within range of one of these censers with this effect going. And you can see there's actually a few plants basically right in here. So cryptweed, string roots, pale grass, rot bulb, as well as a few others like the tall sludge creep. Some of these will say they can only be grown in the sludgeon mist, and this is how you're going to have to grow these, by using that bottled fog. But it also gives you a nice bone meal effect, so it's great to just stick inside your farms to grow those plants, and you know, maybe get the sludge plants if you need those for decorating or for alchemy or something like that. You can get them through this. Now next up, we can also do the swamp water. So what we're going to do, basically the way it works is it imbues things. So if we put a bark amulet into here, and then we take a bucket of the swamp water and we just right click, what happens is it dumps that swamp water into there, and the bark amulet's in there, and you can see right now all it can be imbued with is a bark amulet. I think there may be some plans to add additional things, but what happens is it doesn't consume the bark amulet. This will be used for probably like rare things you may not be able to easily farm. So the bark amulet, of course, only drops from the tree, the ancient tree boss. So we throw some sulfur in, and you can see that it gives the effects of the bark amulet. So it's going to show the health of mobs in an area without you necessarily having to have the bark amulet equipped all the time or having that effect all the time. So if there's only a certain area where you want to see the life of mobs, bark amulet. I think it's 8,000, yeah, 8,000 millibuckets of water in here at a time, so you can have a pretty long-lasting effect. You can see we've got an hour of this effect. Of course, it is also going to require the sulfur as well as the swamp water, but both of these could be fairly easy automated because I should probably mention that if you place a hopper here, and let me grab some of this sulfur, we can feed this through a hopper. And then if you have some kind of liquid piping or something like that, you can feed your liquids into the censer as well. And if you want to feed items into the censer, putting the hopper at the top is going to be able to feed the items into, this is basically the top slot and this is the side slot. Now last up, if we were to set down a censer and we put some sulfur in there and some cremains, we're actually going to get kind of a visual effect. Yeah, there's the effect. You can see kind of a box where this haze is going on, and basically any creatures, living creatures in here that die will become, or have a chance to become, there's a small chance that they won't. Actually, I've had a few not actually make cremains, but any creatures that spawn in here will be able to turn into cremains, which is normally, you know, the rare drop from the sludgeon dungeon. It's going to make cremains from their remains, basically. And I will say, I've noticed I have better luck. Like you can see the mire snails really kicked out and made a bunch, but I have actually had swamp hags occasionally not give cremains. I don't know if that's intended because technically maybe swamp hags aren't living creatures. And you know, maybe mire snails, of course, are living creatures. They're passive and very much alive. But I've always had like about 100% chance with mire snails. Not quite 100% chance with swamp hags. It seems like. Maybe that's just my luck. But I have occasionally had swamp hags just drop bones or nothing. So just a heads up on that. But an easy way to farm up those cremains, because normally they're pretty rare. And that is going to allow you, of course, to make as many inanimate angry pebbles as you so desire once you get into the censer and have that effect available. Of course, it does require a little bit of cremains to initially get and to run, but then after that point, you're good to go. So, now there is one last additional effect, and that is putting aspect vials into the censer. And we're going to talk about that next episode because it only is used for Aspectrus crops, and I'd rather have that be a dedicated episode to Aspectrus crops now that we've covered alchemy and we have covered the censer. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Next episode for now will be our last Betweenlands tutorial, and that's going to be covering the Aspectrus crops, using the censer to infuse those and grow those and use those. So I wanted it to be its own dedicated episode because Aspectrus really is so very useful with the when it comes to infusions and brewing and stuff like that. So also a quick side note, by the time this video comes out, there should be a small edit that's added to the kind of the treasures episode. Triple-Headed Sheep sent me a message on Discord, and I had totally forgot to cover the magnet, and so I wanted to add a quick edit to that video. And so I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out, and I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys then.